for those of you out there who want to understand what you're doing and you want to start the journey of learning how to play improvised music, you know, and some standard jazz tunes and so on, I would guess these videos that I'm going to shoot now are going to be for you. We're going to talk about arpeggios. We're going to talk about 2-5-1 progressions, where these progressions come from, why they exist, and we're going to take a look at a few tunes as well. I won't let these videos go much longer than about 8 minutes because it starts to people start to drift. So let's start with, what is an arpeggio? An arpeggio is, I've heard it explained as, it's a broken chord. So if we take the notes out of the C major scale, because, you know, why not? Let's just use C major. And we take the first degree of the scale, the third degree of the scale, as we have here, and the fifth degree of the scale. And we can take that up another octave. So that is a C major triad. A triad meaning a 3-note chord, but we have to look at triads because they're the foundation of all arpeggios, whether they be major triads or minor triads, which we'll talk about in a second. So if I take that arpeggio to the 7th degree, remember the degree numbers come out of the scale. So with the triad, I went 1, 3, 5, right? 1, 3, 5 for the first, third, and fifth degree of a major scale. Now I'm going to go from the first to the third to the fifth to the 7th degree, and that gives me a more complex sound, right? And that chord would sound like this, right? It's a major 7. And the voicing I'm using here is a different arrangement of those same notes. I have the first, and then the fifth, and then the third, the 7th, I'm sorry, right? And then the third up on top. Okay, so there's a C major 7 chord, very common chord. So if an arpeggio sounds like this, and it comes out of the C major scale, those 3 elements sort of come together as a very tidy and neat little package, because when you play the chord, we know that the notes in the chord are 1, 3, 5, and major 7. And we also know that we derive those scale, those chord tones or arpeggios from the major scale. So this is the way I'm going to approach the other chords in the key. Namely the 2 chord and the 5 chord. The important thing is not only that you understand how this works, that chords come from scales, and that there's a major triad and a minor triad and so on, which we're covering shortly, but also that these things fall underneath your fingers in an intelligent way. You know, they're not terribly complicated to play, and they all imply the same sound. Now I can take that same group, the arpeggio, the chord, and the scale, and I can move them. So now, if I'm in the key of D, this is D major, 7, and underneath that, I have the same scale fingering and the same arpeggio fingering, right? and that will move everywhere on the fretboard. You get the idea. So these, it's not only like a movable chord, a single, movable chord, root on fifth in this case, movable major 7 chord. But along with the major 7 chord, we get the movable scale, and which is underneath the chord because the chord comes out of that scale, is expressed out of that scale. And we also have the major 7 arpeggio, which travels as well along with the chord. So wherever you have this chord, it's going to likely be a major scale underneath that chord. More on that later, but that is the most common. Okay, so arpeggios come from a major scale. Chords come from a major scale in the case of a major chord, and these are movable up and down the fretboard, and they all express basically the same kind of sound. When I play a scale like this, from a guitaristic perspective, I'm playing that scale vertically. Vertically meaning I don't, I'm not traveling all the way across the fretboard because I only have so much time to express the chord. And when you're improvising, what you want to do is you want to express the sound of the chord progression. That sort of makes sense. It doesn't even, I don't care what style you're playing, even if you're playing a swing or gypsy jazz or country or whatever, that's sort of a general overall rule. And guitar rhythms have to do with how we finger things and how comfortable these things are to play. So that's where I'm going to start here. So this just to recap, we start with a scale because everything comes from a scale. The same thing goes for open position. I mean, if we were to take a cowboy chord of C, and we're taking the major scale of C, also vertical, and if we take the 1, the 3, the 5, you can see that's the beginning, and then a 1 of the C chord, and the 1 and the 3 again. So there's my C chord, right? The arpeggio it's going to be right. It's good to think this way because this kind of thing will help define the chords that you're playing and improvising over. Okay, it's not just about single note lines, right? We have to build repertoire. We have to learn a song. We have to learn how to play the song in our own individual way. And in order to do that, we use the chords that the song uses, and then hopefully eventually learn how to solo over those chords. Remember that a triad is the foundation of more complex arpeggios. The more complex arpeggio that we're looking at here today is the simple major 7. It goes take a note, skip a note, take a note, skip a note, take a note, skip a note, and take another note. 1, 3, 5, and 7, C, E, G, and B makes a major 7 chord down here in open position. C, E, G, B. That's a nice major 7 right there, right? And when you learn this way, you can start spelling chords up and down the fretboard because you understand how chords are constructed. And underneath each one of those chords I just played, there's going to be an underlying scale, right? And an arpeggio. These are the I would say, well, let's just call them the essential fundamentals. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube, some really great players. Interesting players. But there's a lot of single note line stuff. Like it's like people are scared of chords or something. I don't get it. They're just, it's like saxophone lines, and this isn't a saxophone. This thing's designed to play chords, right? And they're not just down here. They're all over the fretboard, and underneath the chords we have our scales and our arpeggios. Okay, that's the pitch, and I'm going to move on to some more chords and scales out of this the foundation of this C major key. Okay, thanks, and we'll see you soon.